Hello. Welcome. Welcome. Hi, Manifest Hub. Welcome. Hi. Hi, Tife. Kinkin. Welcome, everybody. Sister Bolu, good evening, ma. How are you? Okay. Um, there we go. Online now. Okay.
Hello.
Hi. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good,
How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm loving the background in the room.
How is
Oh,
this
you guys are
orientation?
upside down. Yeah.
1 second. Is that better?
Yeah, a little, but Tosin has to come closer.
Yes.
It's a good.
Nice. Good afternoon. This is so exciting. I'm so happy to see you guys.
Good to see you
Can you guys
too.
hear
Sorry,
me?
we're just figuring out our
It's okay.
our
It's okay.
technology. Can you
Let
hear
me move
us?
it back.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
If you can move the phone back a bit, like Tolu was saying, so we can see the two of you clearer. But if it's not possible, that's okay.
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 Just have to change.
Maybe it's
All
the best we
right.
can do.
Okay. That works. Welcome everybody to Fix It Finance. Today is an awesome day. Our first couple, live, and we're very looking forward to it. Tosi, you're not smiling. I don't understand what's happening. Okay. Um, so just a brief introduction, I guess. This is Fix It Finance, where we, teach and help and, as much as possible, help people to understand when it comes to finances. And today we're going to be talking with, Tosin and Tutu are going to be sharing their story with us, how they manage finances as a couple, So we did like a preliminary discussion per se, I think last week, or was it? Yeah, it was last week, and it was so interesting. I was like, people should stop talking, save it for the live. So now that we're here, let's get right into it. So do you guys want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, sure. Titu, go ahead.
Just throw someone out, but sure, go ahead. Anyways, okay, so my name is Tutu Ajayi,
Mm,
and what else can I say about myself? This is Tosin Ajayi. We've been married for a little over 3 years now,
nice.
and we both live in Alberta.
Yeah.
I work as an engineer, and Tosin works as an accountant.
That's right.
What else do you want to say?
That's all. That's
We
that's
have
that.
a 2-year-old daughter.
Oh
Yeah, I got it.
yeah. Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
nice to meet you all and to see you all.
Is she gonna make an appearance? Just say.
Hopefully not.
She can teach us a thing or two. Okay.
Hopefully not.
Okay. So I guess let us know about your background. Like, I think when we talked about it before, you guys had mentioned wanting to do it in like 3 stages. So I guess take us right into the first stage. How do you want to go? Let's go.
Okay. Well, like I'll do an intro, then I'll let Tosin talk for a little bit.
Okay.
So we're gonna kind of just start out with, before the process from before we got married, from like when we met, and then, the first few months of marriage, and then we'll kind of go from the journey so far and what's
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that we've done, or, some of the mistakes that we made, some of our big wins and whatnot. So just starting off with right before we got married, um, one of the things that we just felt was really important was for us to actually understand each other, like how we deal with our finances and how we both look at, finances in general. So I'd like to kind of start with where he was from his own perspective as a single guy, and then I can kind of just chime in a little bit, and then I'll go into how I was.
What was that? I was just there. So, for me, um, I I knew the difference between a want and a need, but I couldn't. The line was blurred.
Mm,
So all my all my wants, I assumed them to be needs in the sense
mm,
that I was working, I was making money, and I was just spending it the way I wanted to spend it. So if I
mm,
wanted something, I'll just go ahead, purchase it, whatever. Um, so when we met, at that point in time, I had debt. I had some form of debt, and I had two cars. Let me use
mm.
that as an example.
Area.
So I had two cars, single guy, two cars. No reason, there's no need for me. There was no need for me to have two cars, but I just wanted to have a weekend car, a car that I would drive on the weekend. You know,
Sorry, where were you
so
going on the weekend that you needed a special car?
Let me ask
I wasn't
you.
really going anywhere, to be honest with you. But you drive Monday to Friday, you drive your regular car to work. On the weekends, you just want to, take something a little
What
bit
kind of
faster,
cars
whatever.
for our male audience? Well, and some of our female car enthusiasts. What kind of cars were they?
It was a Chevy Camaro.
Mm,
It was a Chevy Camaro. So that's an example
That was
of,
one of the cars.
yeah, a Chevy Camaro was the weekend car, and then the
mm,
other car was the regular. What was it? It was
Nissan.
a Nissan Sentra.
mm,
So that's an example of wants and needs being blurred, right? I
yeah.
didn't need to have that kind of car. Secondly, I lived in a two-bedroom apartment, and it was just me. I
Mm,
didn't need to live in a two-bedroom apartment, so I was just spending my money frivolously. I wasn't really saving per se,
mm,
because it was just me, and I knew how to, should I say, hustle, in the sense that
mm,
if I needed money, I knew what to do to kind of get money. If it was to
yeah.
take it out of my credit card, as long as I was paying my monthly payments,
Yeah.
in my mind, I thought I was okay. As long as
Mm-hmm.
no one was calling me saying, "Hey,
You owe
Mister,
this.
you need to." Exactly. So as long as they're not calling me, I didn't need to call the bank for anything. In my mind, I thought I was good.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
then you could almost pretty much say that maybe I was the complete opposite of that. Like I was just like extremely well, not risk averse, but debt averse type of person. Like I just don't like debt. I don't like owing anybody anything. Like if I wanted to get something, I have to make sure I have the money for it. Like, I was always saving from when I graduated from university, saving up to buy a house, saving up for one thing or the other. I just like and I never I had things that I liked, like, I like purses, shoes and everything, but I wasn't necessarily the person that had to have like the latest thing. Like, I was okay. I remember actually in the car I was driving at that time, I was driving a Mazda 3, and I remember very, very like wasn't too old, but like I remember someone telling
It
me
was a rust bucket.
it was it wasn't a wrestling.
No shame,
But I
no shame
remember
in that game.
I remember one time somebody told me, like, Tuti, your car and your like career, they don't match. Like, what are you like, why do you have this car? I remember that time, and I remember I decided to change my car, not because of what someone said, but it was kind of time. But I
Mm.
remember even at that time, like when I was changing the car, I was like, nope, I wanted an SUV, but I'm like, I can't afford it, so I'm not buying it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
unless I could pay for it, I wasn't going to buy it. So,
There's someone in
we're
the
coming from
comments.
those,
There's someone in the
yeah.
comments that I think that person must know you.
Yeah,
They're like
that's
that
our chief
Master
officer.
Three.
Chief officer, how you
Yeah. My Mazda 3 was cool though. My Mazda 3 was, it was a thing in town to me, sha.
Yeah.
Anyway, so like I was just complete opposite, right? Very more conservative in terms of my spending,
Yes.
and just having certain goals and certain mindsets. So then we both meet, and at the time when I think after we met, when we were engaged, or I guess we can try and talk about, so when we met each
No,
other
what changed? What's before? Because the change kind of started before we met.
before for you.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now it's
Okay.
not like the door opened a little bit. The lights were coming through a little bit before we met.
Okay.
Actually, no, it was when we met. When we met. Actually,
I'm
it
like,
was
when
after
was
we
this
met.
light shining?
So, so anyway, were you done? Were you done with your
Yeah,
part?
go on.
Okay, so we meet and everything. We chat, blah blah blah. Obviously the first time I took her out on a date, I took her on the weekend car, right? I have to put my best foot forward, right?
Hello.
So when she saw the car, she was like, "Oh wow, boy is doing good." No?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Anyways, I took her out in the car, we're chatting, blah 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 blah. A couple of days later, I got my renewal. It was time for me to renew I think my license or my plates, something that involves you going to the registry, Sha. Anyways, I go to the registry and they say, I think it was to renew the license on my car. So they say, you have this amount owing. And I'm like, me? I'm like, nah, just check again. Maybe it's another person. They showed me like, yo, you have this amount owing, $3,000 on speeding tickets. I'm like, ah. So I started to think back, like when was I speeding? Where was I speeding? But anyways, it was me because there were some days I was driving to work in the fast car.
In the weekend car.
In the weekend, yeah, I was using the weekend car for weekday business. Anyways, so I was driving to work and there's this particular stop sign or red lights on the way to work. And because it was in the summertime, when it flashes, you can't really tell. When the speed camera flashes, you can't really tell. So I think for a couple of days consistently, I was going over the speed limit. And when you're in a car like that,
you don't feel it.
You don't feel it at all. Like as soon as you start the car is already on 80, but you don't know. So anyway, I was like, so I had to pay $3,000, like I wasn't even expecting it. It was an unforeseen expense, and the thing really hurts me. Like it really pained me because I wasn't expecting it. And then I think before that point in time, I was listening to Dave Ramsey. I started listening to Dave Ramsey, and the thing that kind of caught me about Dave Ramsey was the fact that he was rude to people on the phone.
Straight.
So the first time I heard him, I think he called someone a moron or an idiot. And I looked at the radio station. I'm like, this is supposed to be a Christian station. So what's going on here? So that's how he just caught my attention. And then I started watching his. He had some YouTube videos on his money makeover.
Yeah.
So he had a couple of series. So I started watching that. I downloaded that on my iPod. And I was listening to that, and then that's why I started trying to save for an emergency fund. But because before then, I didn't really have an emergency fund. I just thought if anything came up, just go to my credit card. Yeah, exactly. So anyways, the $3,000 was, I'd put some money in mutual funds. So I had that amount to pay it off. But it pained me because I had to like deplete my mutual funds at that point in time to pay off that expense.
Okay. So I guess how did you guys get into, like, how did you guys talk about money before you got married? Having seen that he had a weekday car and a weekend car, $3,000 in fines, was just living that single guy life. How did that conversation happen when you guys were dating / courting, whatever you want to use?
So I think one of the most important things is like when those things were happening, I actually knew about it. So he told me. It wasn't like, oh, all these things were going on and then he was just kind of keeping it in the background, not really telling me what was going on. So I knew, like he told me, we started talking about it. And especially when he started listening to Dave Ramsey, I actually learned about it from him. And then I started listening too. So that was one of the things we were kind of open with ourselves in the beginning. So because he told me, he was like, oh yeah, well at least I noticed he has these 2 cars. Then he told me about the speeding tickets and everything. So I'm, at that point, I'm getting a sense of, okay, this is kind of the person I'm dealing with. Like he told me about the debt he had and the plans, like how he got it and what his plans were. So I think that kind of opened up the lines of communication. The fact that it was open enough to say, like, this is what's going on. This is what I know. And at the same time, I also started telling him, like, hey, this is where I stand. Like, I'm not really the kind of person. I don't like debt, like da. And I started communicating more of what my point of view was on finances. And he was receptive of that, which kind of leads us into our next story. So like, I'm like, first of all, those 2 cars, like, why do you have them? Like, look at what this one car has cost you already, like, and you're paying insurance on these cars, da. So my advice at that time was like, I think you need to sell these cars. Like, you need to get rid of it and at least sell one car, just have one car and know that, just You need to do certain things that make more sense. You only need one car, pay one insurance, this and that. And he was open to it. So I think one of the biggest things for us was just more of like we were open enough to each other to be able to just talk about openly about finances
Mm-hmm.
and kind of give advice and receive advice. Because the same way I gave him that advice was the same way he told me about Dave Ramsey. And at that time I was like, oh, let me listen to this
Mm-hmm.
stuff and see what it's about. And, our journey kind of started from there. And we
Mm-hmm.
started taking a lot of the principles from Dave Ramsey as well and
Okay.
applying it to our individual lives at that point.
Okay.
So I guess you can go into the story of what happened when you were supposed to sell your cars.
Yeah. So after that, after I had to pay that hefty fine, I said, you know what, I gotta get rid of this car, right? So I go to the dealership. I did my research on the car that I wanted. But you know, one thing I want to say, these dealers are like crooked people in the sense that they do a lot of bait and switch, or switch and bait and switch. So I saw the car I wanted online, and no, I didn't call them. I drove there, and I was like, okay, hey, I want to see this car. But they're like, oh, we just sold that car, but we have these other cars for you to see. So they kind of
Mm-hmm.
hooked me that way, right? And because I was already there, I needed to change my car. I was like, sure, fine. Anyways, um, I ended up getting rid of both cars, and I got myself a newer car, right? I got myself a newer car, and I was pretty impressed with myself. You know, I was like, oh, good deal, you know, shrewd negotiator and everything. And I drive to Tutu, right? This was in the evening. I'm like, this guy's gonna like this car. So I drive to her, and she comes out, and the look on her face, she was so disappointed. And I'm like, you told me to change my car, and I changed my car. What is your problem? Do you want me to be riding bicycle? Like, so, she sees the car, and she
Like, how
looks.
much is it?
So she was like, how much is this car? So I told her,
Well,
and I was like, you know, this guy's a good car because to help when your parents come, we can put them in, there'll be enough space for them, you know. The car was big. I didn't need, it was too big. I didn't need that car. So, anyways, I got a look of disapproval. So I had to go back to the dealership. I had to go back to the dealership to downgrade. So when I went to the dealership, the guy that sold me, the guy was looking at me. So I had to start explaining to him that, sir, this car is too big. You know, when I'm driving it, it feels like I'm driving a boat. You know, I need something smaller, something more comfortable.
I
So,
try so
anyways,
hard to laugh.
I was able to downgrade and switch to a
Mm-hmm.
smaller car. And I did more research at this point in time. So the car I got was a car that was actually, at that time, it was a very reliable car.
Okay.
And up until today, I haven't had any issues with the car. Um,
Nice.
so yeah.
Okay, so I guess so we can go into some like lessons. For those that are listening, if you have any questions for Tosi and Titu, please post it in the comments or like post it in the question box. So my next question would be, so you guys went through all that funky stuff before you got married, and you know the lines of communication was open, and you guys were able to like see eye to eye on some things. So how was it as soon as you got married? How was it coming together financially? Because at least when you were single, you still kept things separate, right? So now you've done the wedding, everybody has eaten cake. How was it to merge the two lives together?
okay. So I guess coming together, one of the things that I guess I didn't mention was right before, I guess the same year we were getting married, I started a master's program. So
Yeah.
I started an MBA, and obviously that cost money. So I had like going into marriage, like I had like some student loans that I was going to have to pay off. And at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, Tosin had like his own
Student loans.
student loans that we were going into marriage with. So, those were two things that were already something that we knew that we had to attack like together, like once we got married. Um, what else? So first things first, you get married, we're like, okay, yeah, you have this debt, I have this debt. We're going to have a plan to pay it off first because that's the biggest thing. I just didn't want us to just keep carrying that around with us. But then, boom, what happens 3 months after we got married? I'm pregnant. So that's like another aspect of your finances that you have to, or not, another aspect of your life that you have to take into account when it comes to finances. So at the same time, we're trying to like, we're saving money and we're putting money aside to pay off debt. But at the same time, there's also a child that's coming along that we have to also have money set apart for. So those were two things. So one of the first few things that we did when we got married was we had a budget. We created a budget for ourselves, like a family budget, where
Okay.
we'd be able to both. So yeah.
Sorry, I just want to cut right in right there. So you said you created a family budget, but just because I know you guys keep separate accounts. So I
Yes.
want
How
you
do
to
you
kind
know?
of
How do you know? How do
I
you
see
know?
with the eye of the spirit, but but like I want you guys to talk about how, because I know a lot of questions that come forth is like, oh, do we have to do joint account as a couple, blah blah blah. And one of the reasons why I really wanted this live to happen, like I was really happy to bring you guys on, is because you guys are still high functioning when it comes to your finances, even though you keep separate accounts. And
Yeah.
I really want you guys to stress on that so people understand it's not about joint account or no joint account. It's about the communication and the respect for each other and being open, like, and just talking about, okay, like someone just asked who is in charge of the budget, how do you guys, and you don't have to, like, just talking from that perspective so you can continue from where you were.
So let me jump in if you don't mind. So when it came to doing the budget, I was really hesitant, like, because
After
I
having
wanted to
weekday car and weekend car.
exactly I want to bring it to one car and everything, right? So I was really hesitant, but in the long run, I realized that my way wasn't the best way. I had to just swallow my pride and realize that the way I was doing it wasn't the best way. And I said, okay, you know what? We're gonna do it your way and see how it goes. So when we were doing the budgets, so pretty much we brought our incomes together and said, okay, this is how much we're making, and these are the bills that we need to pay. These are our expenses. And so after paying the expenses, you want to put money aside for savings. One of the things that I was pushing back on was our blow money, because I wanted to have money to blow in case I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do. So we had to negotiate. It was give and take. I said, I can afford to drop this amount, for this. Maybe we can spend X dollars for groceries, but we have to take some money away from entertainment so I can put it to part of my blow money so I can do what I need to do. Right. So that's how we started. And it wasn't once we did it the first time, there was room to tweak it, right? It wasn't like set
of
in
course.
stone.
Yeah.
So I think that was the key thing. And also I wanted to say, hey, you know what? Okay, this is the amount I'm going to set aside for my pay. I'm going to naturally, or every month it comes in or whatever, I will go into my account and do the transfer. But she was like, we're not going to do that. We can do automatic withdrawals. I was kind of pushing back on that, but after a while, I jumped on the automatic withdrawal bandwagon.
Yeah, automation for sure. It's a huge.
It worked.
And I guess one of the reasons too that you were able to do that is because he saw that, because we started out like the way he wanted, like, okay, I'll send you this much every month so that you can put it into this savings account that we have. But then we realized quickly that today, this week you send it, next week you will send, that kind of a
sometimes
thing.
some weeks I'll be like, I just hope she forgets. If I forget, so I'll never send this, so I can blow it, right? But we realized that the easiest way is just to automate it, and as soon as the money comes in, bam, it's gone.
Yeah. So that we did that. And then in terms of like still having separate accounts, but managing our finances jointly, like we said, the budget was kind of like the main place where we're able to have visibility about who is responsible for what. So, okay, this person is responsible for this bill, and this bill. This person is responsible for this bill, and this bill. So then it's like so even though it's not like physically in the same bank, like because of the budget,
plan
it's
as
kind
one.
of exactly. So we're planning everything together through that budgeting process. We're planning like how much we're saving, planning how much is going to which expenses and who is paying what from what accounts it's automatically coming for. So then that person is in charge of managing that side of things. But like I guess when it comes to overall like managing the overall budget, I would say like, and I think Tosin will probably agree with me, like I'm probably more like
he's even pointing to you already.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, let's look at the budget. Have we looked at it recently? Okay, do we need to adjust anything? Like, so obviously when we had my daughter, we had to adjust a few things when we started daycare. And then when COVID happened and we didn't need daycare, we could take that out, just kind of making those adjustments as time went on. So it's something that so I would say we plan together, but we don't have like the joint accounts where everybody's monitoring like okay, how much is
How
Did
much
you go
has
to
come
how
in?
much
Starbucks today?
what
Mm,
did he swipe his card on type of
yeah,
thing. However, one of the things I would say is that we do have like and I think it's one of the things we discussed before, like we have a level of trust whereby
Mm-hmm.
like even though we don't have the same accounts, like I can tell Tosin like one day I'm like, yo, bring your phone, let me see how much is in your checking account. Like, why is the money sitting there? Let's move it into savings, that kind of a thing. And
Mm.
he can do the same thing. Like nobody's hiding anything. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like I can't ask him now for this. If I want to ask him for something, I'll ask him, and he's willing and open enough to at least give it to me and say, okay, no, this is how much I have. Even though I saw at first he might say, oh no, I don't have anything, I don't have anything. But at the end of the day, like he'll just give it to me, and then I'll check. I'm like, oh, I'm going to. If you don't send me money, I'm going to just automatically like
yeah. She's always threatening me. She's like, because if there's money sitting in my account, she's like, what is this sitting there for? And I'm like, it's my vex money or whatever, right? I want to blow it however way I want. So sometimes she
Mm.
threatens me. I'm like, yo, I'm going to transfer this money.
No, I'm like, that's money we
Promptly,
can be saving. Why is it sitting
because
there? Yeah, like if you don't do it, I'm going to automatically transfer more money on the next
Nice.
transfer. So stuff like that, we have that level of trust to be able to work together and plan together. And I think that's what
Yeah.
has really worked for us,
yeah,
And
not having a joint account.
I think the trust comes from the other party being open as well. Because I think that's
correct.
necessary for things to work. Like each person has to be open enough and humble enough to be able to say, okay, fine, this is where I'm at, this is where you're at. And like Tosin was saying, whereby he was saying, I need blow money. Just because his personality is still there. He doesn't change overnight because he got
Yeah,
married. He still wants to be able to
exactly.
go to Blaze Pizza and buy 15
You know,
boxes, you know?
you
So
know.
he likes sampling restaurants and whatnot. So he doesn't want to be. So I'm glad you guys talked about that because that openness, the openness breeds trust, and of course, part of openness is communicating. This is what I need.
Mhm.
This is what I like. This is what I don't like. Okay, so there's a question here that says, did the budgeting start before or after you got married?
After.
It started
Yeah, I was
after.
gonna say it should be
Mm.
after. Don't be planning your finances with somebody you're not married to because
It was after. Like anything we did before marriage was just still individual. Like, and we didn't have any joint expenses like before marriage. Like even our wedding, like it was still individual. Your family, my family, kind of thing. We didn't even like say, oh, let's put money. Other than maybe our ticket and our honeymoon, like
Yeah.
there was nothing that we were like
yeah.
putting
The
money
other
together.
question that's there is how what does Tutu use her blow money for? I mean, wait, how did the person say it? The person said, "Please, what does Tutu spend her blow money on?"
Who said I have blue money? I don't like. Okay, like I said, I like there's certain things I like, but I'm not really like I don't know, like typical everyone is different. I'm a little more conservative when it comes to buying stuff, but I like purses. Right? And I feel like a lot of people that know me, like sometimes if I pick up my purse and be like,
We
yo,
know,
like where'd you get this from? Like so
we know.
once in a while, like and it didn't really happen to be honest. I think I started doing that again, maybe this year was the first year I came back. I'm like, okay, I've not gotten a person in a while, but when I
Mm,
had my daughter and everything, my priorities were different. So it wasn't
of
as
course.
much. But yeah,
Mm.
stuff like that, like the occasional purse or
The occasional purse.
or and what else do I like? I don't really spend
Yeah,
much
Tutu
yet.
doesn't really spend that much, but when she spends on purchases, and those purchases are a lot. Or those purchases,
Heavy dollar value items.
yeah, those purchases are not,
They're not even.
okay.
Anyways, well yeah,
Okay,
that's I guess that answers the question.
so the next question, what's been the biggest struggle so far? Like when it comes to like merging as a home, as two individuals coming together, from a finance perspective, what's been the biggest struggle? Each person has to give one answer. So,
I guess it's a good struggle for me. The fact
mm,
that I can't, I can't just go out and buy what I
thank
want.
you. Oh, wow. Please,
You
wait. Can you rewind, pause, say it again?
I can't just spend what I want when I want. So it's been a good adjustment, because I see what budgeting has done for us. I see how it has helped us move the needle forward.
Mm.
But the struggle is, yeah, I just can't go out and say I want to buy this and
But can
just
I
buy
can
it.
I say something? So it doesn't sound like, because sometimes to some people it sounds as if it's restrictive, and it's not. In the sense of the reason you can't go out and just spend anyhow is because you're considering Tutu. Like
Yes.
you're considerate of how your decisions affect her. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I mean, just I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's the way, at least from our experience, that's been there. It's like, okay, yes, I can decide to go and blow how much, but by the time I think of the other person, I'll be like, okay, let's at least talk about it. You know? But
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, go
exactly.
ahead.
That's exactly what it is because
Like you have the money in your
yeah,
account.
the money is there. I can go and buy it, but I
Yeah.
can go and buy whatever I want to buy, but we're breaking the trust, right? The trust
Mm-hmm.
is this is what we're going to spend, this is what we're saving towards. So I don't want to go and break that trust because if she did the same to me, I will feel hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Because we came to an agreement. It wasn't like she strong armed me to go into this budgeting thing. It was a mutual agreement, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
when your heart is set on it, then you'll be able to see it through.
Nice.
Yeah. What was the biggest struggle? What was the biggest struggle? I think for me, it's more of like the different mindsets towards like finances and, still trying to merge that because, like I said, for me, I think personally, I'm a lot more debt or risk adverse when it comes to stuff like that. So, like, why do we have to do that? So, being able to take a risk and do this and do that, like,
Mm.
I know that he can just decide, or not just decide, but just come up with an idea one day. Oh, we need to do this. I want to do that. And I'll just be like, like try not to like fuming inside, but at the same time, like trying not to like, just crush whatever it is that he's saying. Because I think
Mm.
to an extent, like sometimes he can be like a dreamer or whatever, like just have all these different
Yeah, yeah.
ideas of different things. So for me, like I think at the beginning, even maybe before we got married or right when we got married, I used to get like really rattled up about stuff like that. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? Like, why do we have to do this, da, da, da? But after a while, it was just like, wait, wait, wait. Like, you don't have to necessarily always, react in that way. Like him saying something or giving up, some ideas doesn't necessarily mean that he's just going to go ahead and do it. And he showed me that he's not just going to go ahead and do something.
Without
Like we're
your
going to without my consent or like at least agreement. So like,
mm-hmm.
so just being able to understand that even though this person has like a different perspective or a different way in which they
of
think about
thinking, yeah.
finances, like you can still like, come together and talk about it and come to an agreement. And it's not necessarily going to be the automatic like, oh my gosh, this guy is just going to do something crazy and I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to deal with
Mm-hmm.
it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah,
think that's one of the biggest things. And I think that has built is based on the trust that we've been able to build over time that
yeah,
we've been able to overcome that for me at least.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, so from that perspective, to I guess if I was to put a definition on it, it would be for the person in the relationship that's more responsible, you need to show a lot of grace to the other person. So just
Mm.
because you came up like you're really strong and you know what you're doing, the other person's input is also just as valuable. So extending grace to each other, and it helps,
Yeah.
like you're saying, with the trust and the just the coming together, the communion, for lack of a better word. So yeah, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. So what's been, I guess, since we've talked about the biggest struggles, let me go. Sorry, my creative director is telling me I have some questions. Okay,
Hello,
there's a
creative director.
question
We
here.
didn't know
So
anything.
Tone says, apart from savings, do you have investments and what is your approach to investing? Great question, Tone.
Um, yes, we have investments. What is our approach? We just invest. We just I guess how do we put it? We have RESPs for the little one. We have TFSAs and we have investments from work.
Yeah.
At work. So what we do, what I do, like I can speak for myself. Um, I so part of my blow money, I put it into
Stocks.
investments, right?
Mm,
So I put it into stocks, and because of the stage we are at right now, it's heavy into equities, right? So a lot of it is into risky growth stocks,
yeah.
and it's like I said, it's blow money. If it goes, it goes. I can live with it. So I take risks that way. So that's how I put my
Mm,
money into those kind of stocks. For
mm-hmm.
Tutu, I guess you can speak for.
Yeah. I I guess before we get to the investment point, because I wanted to also talk about how we kind of followed the baby steps because I know we've
Yes.
talked about Dave
Yes.
Ramsey a few
Yeah.
times. So for us to actually be at the point of having investment, there were certain other things that we had to, get done first. So like,
Mm-hmm.
the first
Sorry, you see, she's very
No.
methodological. See, the
That's
way
why you
we
married that guy.
that's
That's why.
why she's in charge of the thing.
So yeah, but like yeah, we can talk about the steps, and maybe I can talk about that after. But yeah, so the reason why we're able to invest is because we've done certain things like paid off debt. We've also like we have an
Saved an
emergency
emergency
fund.
fund.
We're saving for retirement. We have like our daughter's savings account and all of that. So initially my strategy for investments was Tangerine savings account.
Ah, oh, but not the NBA. Tutu.
Initially, I was just like, let me just put my money here. It's going now at 2.5% or whatever percentage they're giving you, and it's just staying there.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
However, like obviously over time, and I think definitely because of like our relationship and stuff, like I've been able to at least come out of that. And also thanks to my MBA too, I learned a little bit
A
more
lot.
about like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
financial analysis and being able to understand some stocks. Now, I'm not even an expert in any way, but just having a certain level of understanding that makes me comfortable enough to invest.
Mm-hmm.
So, more recently, like I did do a few stocks as well, and also some ETFs.
ETFs. Yeah.
ETF.
Yeah.
And I still have like, mutual funds here and there. But one of the things I wanted to say though is like how now it's almost like even with our investment, because we went through those different steps to get to the
Mm-hmm.
point where we can actually invest, and Tosin calls it blue money, but yeah, you're investing like some residual or your additional income that you're not necessarily that's not tied up to pay off anything. Like
Yes.
now it's almost like a fun competition between
It's a
us
game. It's a
Yeah.
game
because it's just
between
like, so how much has your own investment? Look at how much mine has made in the past week, and that
yeah.
kind of stuff. But like, we're able to have fun, like
Yeah.
and we're able to do what we want with our money. It's not that much that we're investing, but at least starting out
Mm.
because we've been able to clear out certain other things,
Yeah.
financially for us,
Yeah.
right? Which is very
But
important.
I guess just to give perspective to those that are listening, it's like your investment strategy includes, of course, an RESP for TIF, and maxing out whatever it is that you have available at work. So you're making sure you're putting as much as possible there, because I heard Tosin say that, and of course,
Yeah,
and then last, everything else over and above your budget that you have available, you're putting into mutual funds, growth
yeah,
stocks, and ETFs and co.
yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Mainly in tax-free savings accounts too,
Of course,
like
of
maxing
course,
that
of
out
course.
too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Um,
pretty much every amount that comes in is spoken for.
as it should be,
So
as it should be.
everything has its place. Yeah.
Everything has its own assignments.
Yeah.
Okay. There's one question here from Kemi. It says, since your finances aren't together, how do you guys decide how much each person puts into the joint account, e.g., percentage? Okay, I think, well, when they started, they did say, actually, maybe you guys answered, but I didn't hear you guys talk about percentages or joint accounts. You guys just budget together, and then each person handles whatever they're responsible for, right?
Correct.
Right. So, in terms of like we have like for example our emergency fund, and like we have certain savings accounts that are joint in the sense that we both kind of put money into them. So, just based on how we've planned our budget, like,
Mm-hmm.
and based on okay how much because even though like we're both paying off bills, like the percentage of somebody's income that is going towards bill might be more than the other. So just based on that, we determine like, okay, this is how much you're going to put into this joint
Mm-hmm.
savings account for
Mm-hmm.
whatever whichever savings account it is, and this is how much I'm going to put into it. So
Mm-hmm.
we don't have like I won't say we have like a set
A
Set.
set
percentage,
yeah.
but it's just based on the planning of all the expenses and everything else that we've talked about.
Yeah,
Then we say, okay, this is how much it's going to go. And it changes. Like I know it changed when I was on maternity leave, for
for
example. I
sure.
wasn't making as much as I was when I was working. So the amount that I was putting into the savings account was definitely way, way less compared to like when I was working. So you just
Mm.
adjust it based on that and based on the amount of residual income that you have. Like and like we said, like a lot of times we're trying to budget to the point where it's like zero, like zero left. And when we talk about budget, like you're budgeting your tithing, you're budgeting like your giving
Mm-hmm.
and all the other things that you have going on. But everything is just kind of spoken for or at least
Mm-hmm.
planned for to a certain degree.
Okay. Um, so I guess the next question is in terms of like what has getting a plan around your finances and budgeting and actually communicating and being together on a financial level allowed you guys to do? Like, what are some of the biggest joys that have come from the fact that, because I know, like, I've shared mine before in terms of like some of the things Kenny and I are able to just because we're not thinking about money like that, because we've gotten down to a science, for lack of a better word, you're not stressed about money. So you're able to do some things, So, like, I was talking to somebody today who says all their vacations that they do is never on debt. So, like, what are some of the things you guys do that being financially responsible, I don't know what else to use, has allowed you guys to?
Yeah, one of the things is vacation as well. Like when we go on vacation, we don't worry about debt. So vacations are pretty much debt free, so to speak. We don't have fights about. We've never had a fight. We had fights about money.
That's
No,
you
like,
know what you just said, Tosin. Like, I think people underestimate that thing, because I see it all the time. I'm like, when you people get on the same page financially, the fight will almost be like 0%, not zero, but now you fight about other I
There
don't
are
know how
other
else
things
to
we talk
explain it.
about, but it's not money. But yeah, like we don't have disagreements. We don't have disagreements about money. We can give, when people call, we can give and
You won't
give
feel it. Yeah.
bountifully. Yeah,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and I think the giving thing is definitely like one of the very big things for me, because I know, for both of us at least, like I know before we got married though, it was one of the things I think I told Tosin about. Like, there were a few people that I was able to help out, like just from a single perspective, like maybe someone who needs money for school, or whatever the
Yeah.
situation may be, right?
Yeah.
Or even sending money back home, or helping family members, because it's something in our family, like where we're always like sending money or putting money together for something or whatever, right?
So always there's always something.
Yeah, so it's something where, like, we had already talked about that, and so now when it comes up, it's not an argument of, oh, why is this person calling, or why do we have to give this person. So if I have it in my heart, like, I think we should do something, or if he has it in his heart to send money to somebody or something, it's not an issue. Like, it's nothing big, like, okay, how much are you thinking? It's more of a discussion. Okay, how much are you thinking? What should we do then? It's not like, oh, I beg you, we don't have this money, like, why do we have to do that, right? So
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest things, for sure. And then,
Yeah.
like we mentioned, the investing, right? Like playing around with your investments, and learning, almost like learning on the go, and having the ability to do stuff like that is because we're able to plan properly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To the point where you invest and you're not really worried about the market, because you know that there's going to be valleys and
And exactly,
and
you
stuff
ride the
like that.
wave.
So you just ride the wave, and you're not looking at your investments every two minutes and stuff like that. And your prayer points, you don't
It changes.
you don't pray about well, I should say you don't pray about money, but you're not sweating when you're praying about the kind of thing, right? You know what I mean? You know. So yeah, but we're thankful. We're thankful. We thank God for the blessings, right? I mean, we want to be a blessing. Want to be blessings to other people.
Yeah. Okay. There are two questions here. One says, do you send money to family members, and how do you decide that? And then the other question is, has there been any recent unforeseen expenses that kind of took you guys out by surprise?
Yeah,
Aside
nice
from
feeling.
aside from Tiffany.
We did to get $140.
Something. Huh?
No. Like,
I'm investing.
So in terms of, I think we talked a little bit about sending money home. It's not, I wouldn't say it's not something that I would say it's like every month we send this much to this person or whatever. But if there's a need that arises, or if there's something that comes up, like, for example, I can give an example. My mom had her 60th birthday this year, and my siblings and all of us, we decided it was one of the things that we wanted to, like, kind of contribute towards. So, like, put money together and do that. And in terms of making the decision, it's just more of a discussion. Like, sometimes, like, I might just tell Tosin, like, oh, like, no, I'm thinking of sending this, or I'm thinking of doing this. And all he will ask me is like, oh, how much are you thinking? Or he might even suggest something like, oh, so this much. I'm like, sure, let's do that, So it's just more of I would say more of an open discussion.
Yeah.
Wait, you said sometimes. So what about the other times? Don't tell me.
What?
You said sometimes you will tell me. What about the other times?
I don't remember saying that. I'm saying that times. I always tell you at the end of
To
the
be
day.
discussed later.
Yeah. Always like so yeah, we just talk about it and it's just more of, okay, yeah, sure, let's do that. But we always know. I don't think that there's no time I haven't said anybody that you didn't know, and I don't think you have the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. So the other question was like unforeseen expenses. I guess if I tackle that one just from a baby steps perspective, like you guys talked about, when you have the steps and you have everything in order and you have an emergency fund, unforeseen expenses just become inconveniences as opposed to like
Yeah.
they don't really shake things, you know. But I mean, if you have
Yeah.
one you want to share, sure. But like ever since I know for us that we've gotten, you know, like an emergency fund and all those things in place, it's more like, okay, cool. As opposed to,
Yeah.
Jesus, you get, you
Yeah,
start
I don't
turning
have
prayer
them.
points.
Yeah.
For
So go
Yeah.
sure.
ahead.
And I think Dave Ramsey said one of his something I watched. He said, I think he said something like that. That once you build up, when you don't have an emergency fund, things happen.
Everything happens.
Boilers break, cars break down, blah blah blah. Once you build that emergency fund, you realize that you won't really need to dip
You
into
even
it.
need to touch it. Yeah.
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 I think the only thing that I know that has come up recently is like with my car, and I haven't even like gone back to fix it because I'm like, I'm not driving the car anywhere, so we can stay there. But that's just me, and it's not because you don't have the money. Like there are a couple, I think there went to dealership, I changed out my tires, and then they start listing out. So the last time I was in dealership was May, and then I was there again in October, and then
Yeah.
they
Of
started listing out all these things wrong with my car, and I'm like,
course.
between May and now. I've not been driving anywhere but church. like,
COVID now, COVID. The
like,
car caught COVID.
You can't cross COVID.
and then so they just list out. I'm like, okay, fix this one and this one. The rest, leave it. So
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And it's not because we don't have the money to fix it. It's just more of like it's not that big of a deal. And if
Mm.
I need to, we can and whatever. But yeah, that's the only thing. I think cars are usually one of the biggest things that usually come up. Like either
Mm.
car or like maybe some home thing like a furnace or something,
Yeah,
which isn't
yeah, but
too.
I have a tip for that if I may. Get a car that is reliable. If you're going to buy a car,
There's nothing wrong with my car.
I know your car isn't bad, you know.
Okay.
I'm just saying like research on the car, and trust me, a lot of things you can do yourself. Guys, YouTube is your best friend. Like my car, for example, since I bought this car, anything that has gone wrong with it, I can count the number of things that have gone wrong with my car, and it's less than 5 things. And I fixed it myself. There's this one time I went to the dealership real quick. The guy I drove in and the guy was going to diagnose the car and he said $150. I'm like, $150 to fix the issue or to diagnose? He said to diagnose. I was like, please open the garage door, let me go. So I left. Right? I was vexed and the guy could see my face. I was vexed. So I left and I went on YouTube and this thing was like $20 for me to fix the issue in my car. $20. So what am I trying to say? Get a car that's reliable, do your research, go on YouTube, and most of these expenses you can fix it for a
Easily
fraction of
figure
the
it
price.
out. Okay.
Yeah.
We have about 10 minutes left. So is there anything else before I ask like the final set of questions that you guys want to share that, you know, if you were sitting down in front of a couple, like a couple either in your age range, older than you or younger than you, that you wanted to give an advice to, say they were struggling with money or they just weren't gelling finance wise, what are 2 things you would tell or 3 things you would tell them, like, okay guys, do this, do this, do this? What would be your best advice to someone who was struggling or is having an issue?
Um,
I would say like maybe one thing would be first of all to have be able to come together and discuss like what exactly your goals are. Like, where are you now? Like where do you want to be, right? In the future. I always call it gap analysis. But like where do you see
Yeah.
yourself? Like where do you want to be in the future as a couple, right? If you both have like a vision of what you want to achieve, then being able to discuss, okay, so what we're doing now, is that going to get us to our goal? And if the answer is no, then I feel like that's like a good starting point for you to be like, okay, so like we need to sort things out. If you believe that, especially I feel like in a lot of relationships, there's probably one person who is more like whatever, and another person that is more like, no, we need to plan and we need to talk. And that's probably where there's always clashes. But there's a person who is more into planning and into finances and stuff and kind of go at it from that perspective of talking about what is our joint vision, and if we can't achieve it based on what we've been doing right now, like what do we need to do differently to be able to achieve that, right?
yeah, be willing to, you have to put your
Okay.
ego aside. You have to know yourself. be true to yourself, know yourself, put your ego aside. And if what you've been doing before hasn't worked, then you got to do it a different way. You have to try or consider doing it a different way. Surround yourself with people who are where you want to be, or who are going in the same direction you want to go, because they will encourage you and lift you up as well.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, like making sure, like, getting the also education, right? Like if you don't know something, right,
Right.
you need to just ask, or find out about it. So like through people like Fix It Finance,
Fix It Finance,
can help you out. But like through different people, like don't be too, if it's like, maybe you can talk to the other person, like, okay, let's go and attend this seminar or read this book together or something, but getting the information you need so that you can at least have like a good starting point. And I think one of the good things Sosin also mentioned is just, being around like-minded people. Because to be honest, if you're around people that, yeah, they're just always blowing money, buying what they want, doing this,
It's
that,
only a
that,
matter of
that,
time. You will join.
you will join them. Everybody wants to
Mm-hmm.
one up each other. That's all you're going to spend your life doing, spending your money trying to one up somebody else. But
Yeah.
I feel like one of the biggest things that has definitely helped us is the kind of people that we've, been around or had as close friends and stuff, that it keeps you from getting distracted with things that are not essential.
And you'll get distracted. There'll be
You
times
will.
you get distracted, because it's the time we went to Calgary in the summertime, and we were distracted by the flashy things that we saw, and when we came back here, we wanted to.
We found ourselves in a dealership.
We're in the dealership for like 4 or 5 hours, like looking at paperwork and trying to negotiate things, but we came back to ourselves. Right?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I guess next question: as a couple, do you guys have life insurance?
Yes, we do have life insurance.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
If
We
you
have
want,
Share.
term life insurance, not whole life, term
Nice.
life.
Yes, yes, yes. And why is life insurance important to you guys?
Life insurance is important because Fikayo told us it's important. Fikayo
that's
don't let us do it.
No, it's
because
important to.
It's important, especially when you have dependents,
yeah.
when you have people that are dependent on you. So if for whatever reason, heaven forbid, if you are called home to glory,
Be with
the
your
people you leave
daddy.
behind, the people you leave behind will not be cursing you, or will not suffer, will not suffer from it.
Amen. Okay. Final question, I guess. So what's your, actually no, I have two questions. Your best giving story. Your best giving story. Like, has there been anything? And if you don't have one, that's okay. But like, I usually ask this question, like, because now that you have free cash flow, you're able to do one or two things for other people. Like, what's been one of, at least recent or in the past, that you've done that's like, oh wow, I'm so happy I was able, like, my money, like there was money available to do this.
Most recently, one of my aunties, when you're growing up, people that live with you
Yeah.
and stuff like that, is I sent her. It was my mom's birthday and she was around. So my mind just went to her, and I've always been telling my mom that I always wanted to send her something, right? So I just sent her something, and she called, or my mom called and was like, "Yo, she wants to speak to you. Like she was so happy, And she prayed, and like I could feel like she was praying from her heart, like
Yeah.
she prayed, and it was just to me,
To
it was
you.
nothing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was nothing, but I realized that to her it meant a lot.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
something that I was happy about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, yeah, for myself too. And this, like, again, it's not as if, oh, to think it and I didn't know, like, these are something that we made joint decisions on. And I think I probably was even the one that sent it to the person's account.
Yeah,
So
she sent it to
that
account,
kind of a thing. So for me too, like, I have a similar situation where I had somebody that used to, like, kind of take care of us, like, as a nanny growing up
auntie.
and stuff. And she didn't even ask me for anything, but it was one of those
Yeah.
situations where you just kind of felt like, okay, let's just send this person something. And I remember my mom calling me recently and letting me know that the lady had called her, like, telling her to thank me, and how the money was just enough of what she needed for her 3 children's school fees, right?
Oh
So I was
wow.
like, oh wow, like that is
Wow.
pretty amazing.
Awesome.
And yeah, I've had like stories in the past where at least, there are people that have come to ask me for something and maybe even just to borrow it in the
Mm,
sense that I think they will be able to give it back. But, you know, thankfully not having to take the money back. And
yeah,
because
yeah,
being in a situation whereby it's like, I don't need it, like, I can always save up more, whatever. It's like,
mm,
okay, fine. Like, it's okay. You can use the money or you can
yeah,
borrow it. I'll at least give it to them in the guys that they're borrowing it. But at the same time, it's like, I don't ever have the intention of taking
yeah.
it back. Yeah.
Yeah, and you just don't know. Like that's the whole point. Like I always say, the whole point of getting your finances in order for everybody that's listening, so you can redeem time. One, like if God calls you to do 40 days fast and not go to work, some of you can't do it. Some of us can. Do you understand? And no, God will not say you should go for 40 days. But I'm just saying, like the whole point is to redeem time. It's not to. And then the biggest reason is to be able to give. And you just don't know. You could be you end up becoming God's hands in a lot of people's lives. Like
Mhm.
I'll share one of the ones we had recently. So one of our friends, her father passed away, and then to be honest, when we sent her the money, we were like, at least it's nothing, it's not a lot. But when she called, she was pretty much crying on the phone, and I was just like, you get. So at the end of the day, you realize that it's not about you; it's about what God can use. At the end of the day, you guys' assets to do down the road, because like there's so many. Let me not go into all the sentiments, but yeah. Any final words? I'll leave that as the last question just because we're at 3:57.
Okay. Well, any
What's your
better
last
words? I
question?
know, like, I had
I know you have something
my
powerful.
points prepared. Yes,
While you're doing that, somebody wrote, "Toast the man of God, do giveaway for boys." Wale Gates. Oh, Wale. Oh, send me $100. I'll double it for you. Send it to my
Stop!
account. I'll double it for you.
Are you in Forex now?
Hmm?
No,
I mean
I'm
everything. Bitcoin, Bitcoin.
Okay. Yeah, I guess maybe one of the things that maybe I had here that we were going to talk about too is like, everybody should just remember to live within your means, right?
mm,
Don't try to spend what you don't have. Don't try to be like somebody else. Like, I feel like if you're a good steward of like the little that you have,
yeah,
that is a predictor of how you be able to handle the more that is going to be given to you, right?
yeah,
And you can't get that more until you're a proper steward of the little you have, right? Because if you're always blowing money, like how are you going to, if you don't start putting something aside for saving, even if it's $5, whatever the case is, over time it builds up. But
mm-hmm.
what is 0 times 0? It's like zero, right? So, or 0 times 20 years is still zero, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going, like, just being a good steward of what you have and just living within your means. It's okay not to have the latest things. Like, yeah, you can reward yourself at times for things that you do, buy the occasional good thing for yourself, but that shouldn't be like your everyday life is just always rewarding yourself and living in debt, right?
Mm,
So
Yeah.
live within your means, don't spend what you don't have, and like being a good steward. And I feel like over time you just see that there's such a big reward in that,
yes,
and
yes,
planning properly.
And start
yes,
small. You start small. You don't have to put 80% of your income into savings. Start small and you
mm-hmm.
build up gradually. It's just like going to the gym. When you go to the gym, you're not going to be lifting the heaviest weights. As soon as you get there, you
Yeah,
start small and then you build the resistance to do more. And like she
Mm-hmm.
said, reward yourself. So tackle the debt that is the lowest debt first.
mm-hmm.
When you win that one, you'll be motivated to go and do
Yeah, yeah.
more,
Awesome,
right?
awesome. Thank you guys so
Thank
much.
you.
Tusi and Tito, I appreciate, being your first live host, No, there was some
Send the
serious
money
gems
now.
dropped today. So thank you everyone for watching. The live is gonna be available afterwards and also on YouTube. And Tosi and Twitter, I really appreciate this. Thank you so much. Some of you
Thank
that
you.
came on the live, you know yourselves, you are my next guest, just so you know. But yeah,
Thank you for
I
having us.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thanks
Thank
for
you
having
guys.
us. It was a good
Yeah,
time.
yeah. All right. See you guys
Nah,
later. I was hoping you guys would show Tiffany to us, but no problem.
nah,
All
nah.
right. Have a good
Nah.
night, guys. God bless you.
Mhm.
Bye.